At the end of every season, we say goodbye to some familiar faces, and this season is no exception. Today, we're going to talk about Chip Ganassi Racing, and hopefully, we're going to do it in under 5 minutes. Coming up next. All right, you can't talk about Chip Ganassi Racing with, of course, first talking about where it came from, and that, of course, being Sabco Racing, owned by Felix Sabates, who made his fortune selling toys in the 80s. He bought a developmental team from Rick Hendrick, and he made it a race team. He started off with Kyle Petty driving the 42, the Peak Performance, and then, of course, more famously, the one everybody remembers, the Mellow Yellow car. He then expanded to a 2-car team with Kenny Wallace, and then later Bobby Hamilton in the not as iconic 40, but I always liked the paint scheme on this Dirt Devil Kendall motor oil car. I thought it was a good-looking car, but the 42 and the 40, two really good-looking cars for him, and he ran a 2-car team all the way up until 1999, when he sold 80% of the team to Chip Ganassi, and then it became Chip Ganassi Racing with Felix Sabates. The Ganassi era started in 2001 with Sterling Marlin in the 40 and Jason Leffler in the 01. They chose the number 01 because Kenny Irwin had previously driven the 42, and he passed away in an accident in New Hampshire testing the car. So they went away from the 42 for a few seasons, and Leffler ran the 01 singular wireless car. This season would also mark the beginning of the iconic number 40 Coors Light Silver Bullet car, probably the most recognizable car from Chip Ganassi Racing of all time, possibly the 42 Mellow Yellow, but like I said, that was a Sabco car. So I think the 40 car with that Coors Light scheme is probably the most recognizable. But some other drivers that drove for him before they merged with DEI, which we'll talk about in just a second. So before we go on to the merger with DEI and talk about that a little bit, let's just run down a full list of all the names that drove for Chip Ganassi before that merger and after Felix Sabates. Of course, you've got Sterling Marlin, you've got Jason Leffler, you've got Jimmy Spencer, you've got Casey Mears, Jamie McMurray, David Strimmy, Dario Franchitti. I knew I was going to do that. Dario Franchitti and Reed Sorensen. Those were all guys that drove for Chip Ganassi Racing before they merged with DEI. So in 2009, Chip Ganassi decided to merge with DEI because both teams were struggling and they were looking to improve, so they decided to run a 2-car team with an optional third team, the optional third team being the 8-car, and that 8-car ran a few races before folding after running out of sponsorship. That car was run with Eric Almirola. DEI ran the 1-car, they kept that 1 number, and ran Martin Truex in it with some Bass Pro Shop sponsorship, and the 42-car ran, of course, with Juan Pablo Montoya and the Haviland funding. Can't talk today. After that 09 season, Martin Truex would leave the 1-car and go to Michael Waltrip Racing to drive the 56 Toyota, and taking his spot would be Jamie McMurray. This would be one of the better duos for Chip Ganassi Racing. Montoya and McMurray, they won some big races. Juan Pablo Montoya won quite a few road course races, and Jamie McMurray, he didn't win a lot, but when he won big races. I mean, he was the king of winning crown jewel races. Whenever that guy won, it seemed like it was a big race. So from 2010 until 2014, that would be the roster. In 2014, they released Juan Pablo Montoya, and they brought into the 42 car, you guessed it, Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson came to the team, and he ran with Jamie McMurray for a few seasons, and of course, eventually Jamie McMurray retired in 2018 or 2019, and Kurt Busch filled in the seat, and that was the way they rolled until, of course, the infamous iRacing incident where Kyle Larson used a racial slur and was fired by Chip Ganassi, Chevrolet, and everybody else. He went through sensitivity training and obviously came back and won a championship. But in his absence, they had to choose a driver, and so they chose Matt Kenseth. Matt Kenseth filled in for one season, and then he was replaced by Ross Chastain, who ran this most current season, and that is pretty much Chip Ganassi Racing's history in a real quick, sort of condensed version. If you would like to see a big, longer version of this, there's a channel called Danny B Talks. I will put a link in the description. He made about a 45 or 50-minute version that's a really detailed history of all this. So if you want to get into the real nitty-gritty, Danny B Talks, he's got a great video on it, but you know me, I like to make these 5-minute videos, and I'm probably pushing it right now. So if you like the content, please subscribe down below, and if you've got a comment, leave it down in the comment section, and other than that, thanks for your time. Peace.